The race we have all been waiting for as Formula One fans, and Singapore Grand Prix delivered for us. What a race. Welcome to another episode of Sports with Monga. Guys, 90% of you have been watching these videos and been enjoying, but not hit the subscribe button. I will request you take a minute, take a second, take 3 seconds, and let me see who does it faster. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and let's get into the Singapore Grand Prix race reaction. What a race it started. We had early news from the Aston Martin camp that Lance Stroll will not be starting he will not be even starting this race, and that was something which was interesting after his shunt possibly on yesterday. A pretty bad shunt in the qualifying. The car was damaged. He was shaken, absolutely, like that impact, like anybody would have been shaken by that. He was completely taken by it. And I think that's what eventually he didn't start. So Lance Stroll did not even start the race for Aston Martin. And that was what was interesting is Zhou Guanyu was starting from the pit lane as well. So that was interesting. That changed the grid. Stroll did not start. Zhou Guanyu starting from the pits. And then we have the race starting. The race leader, Carlos Sainz, takes up. He battles hard. But then we had carnage in the back. Yuki Tsunoda missing a front wing, damaging his car, and is out in the first lap itself. And that was like, what just happened here? You know, how is this? How unlucky is Yuki in one of those, like? And you remember he was P1 in FP2. He was P1 and FP1 basically, and it just kind of went downhill. But then the race was on. It's one of those races where you have to be on it, like you have to be on it. And there was jeopardy, there was drama, there was craziness, there was crashes, and there was everything that we wanted. This is one race where the leader sets the pace for the whole of the grid. If the leader in this case was Carlos Sainz, if he is doing fast laps, everybody is doing fast laps because everybody's trying to close in. If he is trying to back up the field, everybody is backed up. Nobody has a clear gap. What does this mean? It means that nobody is thinking about a pit stop to change the strategy, because if you have clear gaps opening up in the race, it makes it easier if you're following somebody to go for an undercut. But if you're losing 21 seconds on the pit stop, and this track being so close and tight, there's always a chance of a safety car. You might be losing most of your spots because you went for that alternative strategy of pitting when there's no safety car, and then you've lost 20 seconds and you're now basically almost lost. And you know, that was the whole idea, because Ferrari knew they did not have an extra set of mediums like Mercedes had. And we will come to that amazing strategy. But what we need to start off with, and you know, that's something I've not even touched upon, is Red Bull. Max Verstappen did not win the Singapore Grand Prix. We had a completely new podium with one guy who's been on podiums for quite some weekends, Lando Norris, but Carlos Sainz winning his second Formula One Grand Prix, and the first as a smooth operator for the Tifosi fans, for Ferrari Scuderia. Ferrari, what a moment for Ferrari and Fred Vasseur up on the podium. I just want to spend a moment on the podium talk. Beautiful podium. Carlos Sainz P1, Lando Norris P2, and Lewis Hamilton P3. But then the heart goes out for George Russell. That guy would have and should have been on the podium as well. But then we will get into that later in the race. So that was the whole logic. I've talked about the podium, but I want to go back to what we started about, like backing up everybody. The DRS here was not, it is extremely valuable, but then in the slow corners, it's extremely hard to follow a car in front, because you're almost overheating your tires, your brakes, everything. The car balance kind of goes off because of the turbulent air as well, and it's extremely hot. It's not that, you know, it's cool weather, so you're able to get the exhaust smokes, and you're already sweating, you're already losing like 2 kilos in this race, and it's like you're sweltering. It's like you're sitting in a sauna and then you're driving as well and have to have the cognitive skills. So it was extremely hard. But then Carlos Sainz did an amazing job there. Carlos Sainz ensured that nobody had a clear gap. Nobody had a clear gap for them to get in. And until Logan Sargeant in lap 20. And that was interesting. You have to remember, everybody was on the mediums here. It was a one-stop race. Everybody on the mediums minus Bottas from Alfa Romeo, Max Verstappen, and Sergio Perez. The whole idea, and then their hope was they would have no safety car till lap 40, and then everybody on the mediums would struggle, and then they would have to go into pits. At that time, Max and Perez would go in and get on the mediums and have 20 laps of mediums, which was the ideal strategy for Red Bull to kind of get a chance at the podium. Everybody else was on a medium, and they were hoping for a safety car before lap 40, and then hoping that, Max and that deficit and then the power of the hard was that it'll go long, but then that could have been diminished. Logan Sargeant bumps the wall and lap 40, safety car comes in, I want to talk about this first and then get to Logan Sargeant, basically, is the fact that 20th lap, everybody jumps into the pits. Ferrari everybody double stacks, but then Leclerc has put some gap between himself and Sainz to have a clear go when during the pit stop. The only problem Leclerc did was like when he backed everybody up in the pit lane for him to have a gap to Sainz, he is then in traffic because Norris needs to pass, other cars need to pass, and only then he is allowed to leave from his pit stop to start his race again. And that's what happened. Leclerc at that time was P2. But then after the pit stops, he started P6. And that was the interesting thing. The gains were all around. The gains were for Sainz. He still stood number one, like he was still leading the race. Verstappen, who did not pit, P2. Russell, who had pitted, P3. Perez didn't pit, P4. Norris pitted, P3. And Leclerc was, Norris was P5. Leclerc was P6. So Sainz, Verstappen, Russell, Norris, Leclerc, and Hamilton. And Hamilton had pitted as well for the new hard Leclerc as well. But then that did not help Charles Leclerc. He could not be, like, he asked on the radio, like, what the hell happened there? They could not have let him go in the traffic of the pit lane. It would have slapped a penalty in my mind. I want to talk about Logan Sargeant. Now, Logan Sargeant, this is now a recurring theme. I don't want to talk over and over and over about it, but then if you have a driver of Albon was not doing amazing. The car was not doing great. They were not kind of scorching everybody and kind of winning the race or in the points. But when you have a race like this, like when you learn, the only thing that you can try and implement is not crash or damage the car. Have a clean race. Nobody expects you to fight. Nobody's expecting Logan Sargeant to kind of blast the field because he's a rookie. But let's talk about Liam Lawson later. The GOAT, the legend of Liam Lawson. Logan Sargeant needs to have a clean race. What does it take for Logan Sargeant and right now Williams to give him a clean race? In my opinion, Logan Sargeant is suffering from pressure that he's building on himself. He needs a clean race, a race where he is not setting any expectations on himself, and he's basically saying, I'll just go and drive for the fun of it. And I will drive a clean race. Because this cannot continue. And we have talked about a lot of times here that this is not something that you want. This is not something that you want from a Williams team that is on the uprise. Logan Sargeant, I hope you're doing well, and Suzuka makes you feel better and have a clean race. The Williams need to think about their driver lineup right now for 2024. Logan Sargeant is not delivering. That's plain and simple. He is crashing and damaging the car, which costs money. In a cost cap, damages do count. Look at Mick Schumacher. He's not even driving after he crashed so many times for Haas, and now he's a reserve driver for Mercedes. But that's about it for Logan Sargeant. Then coming back to the race, Lap 22, the safety car comes in. Lap 24 and 27, Norris is on a charge because he's on a new set of mediums. He gets Verstappen, and then Hamilton takes over the Dutchman. We have to understand Max Verstappen has led every race. This is hard for him. The car is not just, the hards are just not working. And the team can't kind of pit him because he's in a no man's land then if they do. So they're still hoping there will be another jeopardy and there will be an option to kind of pit. And it just the carnage still continue. But then the scraps were all there, like between Alonso, Perez, and Ocon. Ocon eventually so basically Alonso is trying to overtake Perez. Perez puts up a good defense, but Ocon seizes the opportunity and overtakes both of them, and Alonso loses 2 spots. That was kind of jeopardy moment. But the moment where it started to unravel is, and that was the strategy. So let's go to Max Verstappen. Lap 40 and 41, both Red Bull drivers pit and drop down to the field. Verstappen returns on track to P15 and Perez P70. That was the plan all along. They had the plan to run the hard till the lap 40 and then pit in for the mediums. The only problem was that there had been a safety car. Everybody else was already on the mediums or was already on the hards and was looking at the end of the race. The only thing was like, now what can Perez and Max do from here? And we had a race. We had a race there. Lap 40, this happens. Red Bulls get their medium tires. Everybody else on the hard. And the birthday boy curse. Oh my God. Esteban Ocon. I don't know what that guy needs to do. He was running in points. Like, he was up in the points of around P7, P6. Oh, yeah, no. P7 before his car just breaks down and he is distraught. Ocon was distraught from the lap 43, and he stops the car on the engine just cuts off. The engine just shuts off for him. Alpine need to find the reliability in those cars. Because Esteban Ocon is driving the socks off it, and he can get better points. Virtual safety car deployed. Mercedes jump on that. They double stack to get both drivers on mediums, and that's one thing you have to understand and remember. Mercedes was the only team who had a pair of new medium tires because of the qualifying allocation. They not used them. Everybody else nobody had extra mediums. And this is them playing the strategy game, the game for the race. And they come out P4 and P5 after the pit stops in the virtual safety car. Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Russell, and Hamilton with 2 and new mediums, with Leclerc almost kind of sounding that should we have pitted for softs, and there's the strategy team saying no, we don't, stay out. So Leclerc knew the fact that he was going to be the first guy to kind of basically protect Carlos Sainz, and they made it so easy eventually. Liam Lawson, on the other hand, was improving. He was passed by Verstappen. Verstappen was flying, like he was taking 4 seconds off from Leclerc and stuff, and he was chasing him like a madman. But then the race basically eventually turned out to be, and Leclerc knew he had Hamilton and Verstappen, Hamilton and Russell behind him with the new mediums. Lap 53 and 54, Russell and then Hamilton get Leclerc. So this is the scenario. You have Sainz on pretty old hards. You have Norris on a pretty old hards. And then you have 2 Mercedes drivers hunting you down for that race win. Lap 58 and out of 62. You can, in a picture, you have everybody. You have Sainz, Norris, Russell, and Hamilton in the same frame. They are all possibly in a DRS train, and the most coldest of radios that you would have heard is Sainz when Ricky, his race engineer, called him. Is like, is Norris 0.8, and he's like, I know it's on purpose. He was helping. Sainz has the intelligence in that heat to know that he wants to give Norris the DRS so that he can fight Russell and Hamilton. So he is protected and he protects Sainz, and Sainz protects his. That was mind-blowing in my mind. The way it kind of went in, the way Sainz managed that race, it was amazing. Only to kind of have that, there were moments where you felt like Russell will just take over, because Russell, Hamilton, both of them were like rapid. There was no kind of way that this was not going to be taken over by them. The moment of jeopardy for George Russell, who had been only wanting the win in lap 62, the last turn with the straight before, and he was like, this is where I get Norris. He clips the outside front right, and it is jeopardy. Norris also kisses it, misses, but then it's free and moves away. Russell, I think it's 2 centimeters, and from a possible podium P3 finish, he did not finish the race, and he is out at lap 62. The last lap of the Singapore Grand Prix, Russell crashes out. Unbelievable scenes completely. Podium winner for Carlos Sainz. The smooth operator is back. The chilliest guy basically for Ferrari shows the metal, puts the pedal to the metal, and wins his first Ferrari Singapore Grand Prix. Podium for Lando Norris and podium for Lewis Hamilton. Pure agony and jeopardy for George Russell. Ocon gutted. Logan Sargeant, P9, take a bow. Give that man a drive. He knows Suzuka. Daniel Ricciardo can't come to Suzuka, in my opinion. He will still take some time. Give him Qatar as well. I think this has caused a big problem for AlphaTauri. Like, what happens? Who takes over and how? But give that man a drive, Liam Lawson. That's how it ended. P1 Sainz, Norris, Hamilton, Leclerc P4. Verstappen was 300ths behind. He had gone from P15 to P5 in less than 20 laps. You have to understand, Red Bull had a bad race by their standards. This ends their streak of 15 Grand Prix consecutive wins. This ends the streak for Max, who's won 10 Grand Prix consecutively, and he set the record already. These records are already like set. Nobody can, I think, break them unless we have another team kind of coming back and try, or unless now the Red Bull streak starts again, and then they kind of are better in Singapore next year as well. I have no idea what can happen then, but that's what I fear. But you have to take a bow for Verstappen. For Red Bull, 308 days for a non-Red Bull win. Red Bull have dominated the sport for 308 days. We're all happy and basking the glory of Carlos Sainz because he's a nice guy, but Red Bull have been dominant all around. There is no chance that anybody can beat them. Perez, Verstappen P5, Gasly P6, Piastri P7, Perez P8, Lawson P9, Magnussen, Haas gets the last point, Albon, Joe, Hulkenberg, Sargeant, Alonso, and Russell. Alonso came on the radio at one point and said, this is undrivable. This has never happened. He has called this car beautiful. It's a joy to drive, amazing feeling, rocket ship. But now it is turning for the bad. Aston Martin need to get their act together, because Fernando Alonso is a force to reckon with. When he starts going negative, the team falls apart. Aston Martin need to put something or get something out for him, for Alonso to be able to be happy and then proceed. A lot to talk about, a crazy race. Possibly I'll do some short videos regarding the whole race and how I feel. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you feel? The driver of the day goes to Carlos Sainz. What do you feel? How do you feel? The bromance is back. Orlando on the top of the podium again after 2021 with McLaren days and Ferrari in Monza, in Monaco. Lewis Hamilton on the podium as well. Leclerc missing out. Too much to talk about. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about the race? Do like this video and do share. Guys, come on. You've loved the video. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you do. And I catch you in the next one.